Let's get to our topic for tonight. How singing reduces stress. Let me say that again. Our topic tonight, how singing reduces stress. Okay. So, singing is one of those activities that actually is a full body, full spirit activity. It really engages every part of your being, every part of your brain. It engages your whole body from, your forehead all the way down to your toes. It's really a very holistic experience. It's a holistic activity. And it's free, which is probably the best part. It's free. So, we experience stress and, in fact, also negative energy, which also can get saved in the body. We experience and save stress and negative energy in the body in many different ways. We have tension. It will save itself physically in tension: the jaw, the back, the shoulders, the tongue, the pelvis, the rib cage. All of those areas can hold a lot of stress, and they can hold long term a lot of trauma and life information from our life experience. Additionally, you have things that are oftentimes like your energy centers, the chakra system might be disrupted. So maybe like your heart chakra is a little closed, or the throat chakra. I mean, of course, with singing, this is a big one, the throat chakra being open. Perhaps, there's a lack of connection or an inability to connect to the lower chakras, sacral, the root chakra. And essentially, singing can address all of this. So we're going to go quickly through how it can affect us physically, and then how it can affect us spiritually. And then we'll talk about later the chanting. So ways that singing can reduce stress and release negative energy physically. Number one, singing causes the brain to release endorphins and oxytocin. Now, I think most of us know both of those words in different contexts, or in some contexts, we kind of have a general idea about what those do. But essentially, endorphins release feelings of pleasure and of like calmness in the brain. So you also get a lot of endorphin release after physical activity, after a workout. You can get basically anytime you have that really like warm, fuzzy, good feeling, it's usually endorphins and or oxytocin working together. And oxytocin, then, I think we know that one mostly, in pop culture. It's like the bonding hormone, and it's, like what mothers feel when they're breastfeeding, or that connection with the child. That's oxytocin. But oxytocin also alleviates anxiety and stress. So it's also one of these calming hormones that our body releases. So just simply from singing, it releases those hormones in the brain, and that automatically can change your state of mind, your mood, can calm you down. The second way that's maybe more involved with the physiology of singing and kind of the activity is that essentially controlled breathing, which is what you're doing when you're singing. You are controlling your breath. Controlled breathing can and does slow down and regulate the heart rate. So when you have a long inhalation or a long exhalation, actually with singing, it's more of a quick inhalation, a quick free open inhalation, and then a long exhalation with a phrase. This is going to be slowing down your heart rate and actually normalizing the heart rate. So if your heart is racing, or if you feel short of breath, it's a way to really get into the body. But it's a way to concentrate on your breathing, or to, create a more calm breathing without focusing on, I need to breathe calm now. I need to relax. It's like you're doing something else that by default relaxes the breathing. So it kind of takes the pressure off of like, I'm panicked now, I have to relax. I'm panicked now, I have to relax. A lot of times that can actually like increase the feeling of panic, or the sense of panic within you. So when you're singing, you're concentrating on the phrase, and you're kind of letting the air and the phrase flow through you as you're singing. And essentially that's slowing down the heart rate. It's regulating the breathing. It's regulating the heart rate. Again, it's releasing all the musculature that might be triggered or tight or tense due to whatever you're experiencing. but it's not focusing on, I need to relax now, just relax, just relax. I mean, when you focus on, I have to relax, oftentimes that's like the last thing that happens. So controlled breathing slows down the heart rate and can normalize the heart rate, which is really, really important in reducing stress and also releasing negative energy. The third thing that singing can do to reduce stress is, of course, release tension. Now, that might seem like duh, but it's super, super interesting how many systems within the body that singing influences into relaxation or releasing. So, of course, the first area is the head. When you're singing and you're doing it in like a conscious way where you're aware of how to relax the jaw and kind of sing with an open free sound, you're going to get jaw relaxation. You're going to get tongue relaxation. You are going to get neck, shoulder, chest, back, thoracic cavity. Your ribs are going to start to relax because you're going to be moving them with the inhalation and exhalation all the way down actually to the pelvic floor. It is possible for you to release all the way down when you're singing or breathing for singing. So, in all of these muscle areas, they are all places where when you get into a situation that's stressful, you know, lots of different areas within the body get tight. For some people, it's the stomach. For some people, you know, it's the shoulders. For a lot of people, I think we talked about this last week or the last time or the time before about the jaw tension. For a lot of people, they hold stress in the jaw. You can, you know, you have that kind of tightness. And many people actually hold an incredible amount of tension in their tongue. And you wouldn't think that because you're like, okay, what's the tongue doing? But the tongue is a muscle. As we know, it's, you know, responsible for a lot of our speech. It's also responsible for swallowing. And the tongue can have an incredible amount of tension in it. And that tension, when it's not letting go, can actually create a heightened sense of stress. So even just doing something silly like, or, you know, really opening the mouth and squeezing the face and tongue out, you know, even that kind of stuff can just like super duper release the stress that you're feeling. Not only is it silly, so you'll feel good because it's silly and it kind of adds lightness to the atmosphere, but also physiologically it releases the musculature, which is like, the body just takes, you know, a muscle exhalation. And then, of course, fourthly, regarding the physical part of it, singing can help you recover from like a fight or flight status in your physical body. When you're in fight or flight, your muscles are all tense. You're in animal mode. It's like a lion is chasing me or a bad guy is chasing me. I have to, you know, stand still and become invisible or run or freeze, you know, whatever mechanism is your kind of default mechanism. But when you're in that state, it can be really, really hard to get out of it, especially if you're having like a repeat situation. Maybe there's a colleague that stresses you out, or maybe, you know, you have the same fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you know, over and over again. Like it can just create like a prolonged sense of fight or flight. And singing is just a way to get into the body and kind of release the fight or flight mechanism once it's no longer needed. And that by default, by getting out of fight or flight, by default is going to reduce stress for you. So those are some physical ways that singing can reduce stress. Of course, we're not going to go into like all the very deep details of how all this stuff works in this Facebook Live. But if you guys like this topic and you have questions about it, then please, you know, let's continue the conversation in more detail if that's appeals to you guys. But first, then we're going to go into the spiritual aspects of how singing reduces stress. And this is actually a really interesting part of the topic, and it's very nuanced and varied. There's a lot of ways that singing can, you know, free the spirit and reduce stress on a spiritual level. So one of the first ways, and I think is one of the most obvious, because we just talked about how, of course, singing does activate the entire body, is that singing actually helps you align your chakra system. So for people who don't know, the chakra system are a series of energy centers that are in the body that essentially they control different attributes of the human experience. So when you're singing and you're really able to release all the way down to the pelvic floor and kind of activate the body in like a really holistic, 3D way, singing actually can align the chakra system. Also, if you feel like you have a knot in your stomach, or your heart feels closed, maybe you're feeling heartbreak, your heart chakra is closed, or you're dealing with some kind of like tense things in your life and your solar plexus feels closed, you can actually consciously sing and breathe right into that part of the body to activate either the chakra system or even just to release stress. So sometimes, if you have back pain, or the muscles under your shoulder blades, for instance, are feeling tense, which is going to be the back of the heart chakra in this case, you can actually sing and breathe into that area and send the vibration of the singing and the intention into that area to release. So that's a way that spiritually singing can help reduce stress. Another way is that singing, as kind of leads from the last point, number 2, singing promotes full embodiment. So you essentially can't sing and not be fully embodied. Singing requires the mind, the body, the spirit, and everything else to be more or less aligned to do it. It's a physical activity. The body is engaged. It's a mental activity. You have a coordination going on. It's a spiritual activity. You are using one of the key expressive capabilities of humans to move energy, to move emotion. Now, of course, you can sing and be like not conscious about it, or just be like, trilling along, or you can sing in a way that's not focused on spirituality. Of course, many people do. But if you have that in mind, you can actually use it as a full embodiment practice. And as an aside, I personally think that whether you are conscious of it or not, that singing is a spiritual experience and a spiritual practice. Just as many people who connect with nature and, love gardening might not be thinking like, oh, I'm so spiritual, I garden, I have like a green thumb. But, that connection to life, that connection to spirit through gardening is the same thing with singing. You're connected to spirit when you're singing, whether you're conscious of it or not, which is really beautiful. So number 2, again, promotes full embodiment. Number 3, and we talked about this on the physical level, that singing releases the tension in the physical body. But what that does on a spiritual level is that when the tension in the body is released, it makes space for your higher self, your higher consciousness to speak. When you are in fight or flight, like we talked about in the physical attributes, when you're in fight or flight, your animal body is active. That's not the time when you're listening to your higher wisdom. You're listening to your intuition. Yes, fight or flight a lot of times is about intuition. I'm about to get eaten by a tiger. I'm about to get robbed. Fight or flight can also kick in. Crap, I don't have any money in my bank account. Those things can make fight or flight happen. And those are intuitive things. That's about like, I need to save my life right now. But when you're in that space, you're not generally really super connected to, the more, the eagle's perspective, the divine observer's perspective, because your body is fully engaged to make sure that it doesn't die right this second. So when you're singing and you can release that tension on a physical level, it opens up the space again in the body for the higher consciousness to begin, chiming in and kind of guiding you into maybe a different way. So let's say, for instance, like I said, you're looking at your bank account and, you see that you only have like 20 euros or $20 left for, the next 2 weeks, and that's all you have. And it can create that kind of pang, that stabbing pain. And it does create fight or flight. That for some people is absolutely an existential worry. Actually, I think for anybody, it's an existential worry if you only have $20 for the next 2 weeks. So if you can sing into that and you breathe into that and you can, stretch it out, then you can find the higher purpose for it. Perhaps, life right now is asking me to look within. It's asking me to look at the resources that I currently have. Maybe it's asking me to lean and trust what's around me, ask for help, ask for support. It's opening up my it's offering me to open up my ability to receive. So when the higher consciousness can kick in, there's a lot of ways that you can receive information, and singing will release the physical tension to make space for the higher consciousness to chime in. And then the fourth thing, of course, is on the spiritual level of how singing reduces stress. Singing is self-soothing, and singing is one of the best ways to self-source. So many of us have memories or experiences of a mother or a grandmother, auntie, big sister, big brother, even dad, grandpa singing to us or playing us certain music when we were little. And there's a healing and soothing experience in having that music come to you. And when you're singing to yourself, you are essentially self-soothing, which is really taking care of your spirit, adult self to inner child, or higher self to, wounded soul, or it just feels good. It's also a way to self-source. So when you're singing, in everything that we talked about before, in connecting to the body, in promoting the full embodiment, and activating the chakra system, it's essentially getting you into your own whole experience, and you become more centered. It literally is an activity that moves you through the center of the body, and it centers you in every way, physically, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally. So singing reduces stress in a lot of ways. It's a very broad topic. It's a beautiful topic. And that's what I have for you today on that topic. Now, again, if you guys have any questions about that topic, or you want to go deeper into any of the points, just shoot me a message, send me a message in Messenger or on Instagram. And now on TikTok, you can send me a message too, and we can go deeper into that topic.